say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, let us begin, first of all, by once again thanking each and every one of you for the co-creation of this transmission and this interaction this day of your time. Once again, each and every time, your civilization allows our civilization to have an interaction through this particular form of transmission and through this particular gateway, and in this manner. It increases and expands our understanding of the infinite, because we get to experience the infinite through each and every one of the unique perspectives that each of you represent, and so we thank you for this gift of sharing. At this time, we would like to begin, first of all, by recounting and illuminating the idea of how the polyhedron structures that you are exploring can be utilized in a variety of ways to enhance and increase and expand your understanding and your ability to connect to other dimensional realms of information within and without you. First of all, let us do what you would call in your language a recap of what you are familiar with as the regular polyhedral structures. First of all, you will find that there are actually, in total, of those we will discuss this day of your time, 9. There will be 6 that will be physiological. There will be 3 that will be higher dimensional. Now, more often than not, you will hear on your planet of the 5 regular solids, specifically meaning what you refer to as the 5 platonic solids, again, specifically meaning that they are associated. Their recognition, in a sense, their quote-unquote discovery, is associated with the entity that you call on your planet Plato. But there are actually 6 regular solids, one of which was not known to Plato, but has since been recognized by your civilization. Let us begin with the 6 physiological regular polyhedron. Number 1, if you already have it, mark it down, check it, make sure it is on your list. The tetrahedron, being in a sense a 4-sided structure, or not counting the base, a 3-sided pyramid, but including the base, 4 sides, each side being an equilateral triangle. This you have, yes? All right. Next, what you call the cube. 6 sides, each of which is a square. This you have, yes? Yes. All right. The next being the equilateral octahedron. 8 sides, in a sense, that you would recognize as, again, equilateral triangles. The equilateral octahedron. This you have, yes? Yes? This would be like unto what you would call 2 4-sided pyramids stuck together at the square base. You follow? Yes. All right. Next, you usually count the concept of what you would call the dodecahedron. Yes? But do you have 2 dodecahedrons? Or 1? There is 2. There is the pentagonal dodecahedron, made of 12 pentagons. There is the rhomboid dodecahedron, made of 12 rhombus shapes, which are diamond shapes. So there are 2 12-faced polyhedron, 2 types of dodecahedron. You follow? Yes. All right. You can experiment, and we will get to this in a moment, with constructing the rhomboid dodecahedron. We will explain how to construct such a figure in a bit. All right? Yes. All right. Moving on to the final 6th regular polyhedral structure, you have the 20-sided figure, 20 triangles, equilateral triangles, that you call the icosahedron. You follow? Yes, yes. All right, thank you, thank you. Want to make sure there is someone on the other end of this transmission. Is this true?
That we don't know what you're talking about?
Yes.
Some more than others.
All right.
True.
Have you not, up to this point, explored the idea of the regular polyhedral solids? Yes?
We've been concentrating on the Tesseract tonight.
All right. That is number 8.
Okay.
But first, number 7. And now we enter the dimension of higher realms. What you have now is what we call the tetragrammaton, which is like a tetrahedron in that it appears to be a 4-sided figure made of 4 regular triangles, in that sense, equilateral. But unlike the typical regular tetrahedron, you can now understand that each of the triangular faces, each of the 4, is actually the base of another whole tetrahedron pointing inwards inside the structure. As if each face were a completely separate tetrahedron contained within the overall outside tetrahedron. This is because each face is actually the side of an interdimensional tetrahedron, and they all overlap. All of them overlap. So what you have here is, again, a 20-sided figure, in that you have the overall tetrahedron, the outside one with 4, and then you have 4 of 4. 16 and 4 is 20. You have another 20-sided figure, but it is 20-sided in another dimension, not in your dimension. It only is, in a sense, 4-sided in your dimension. The next, the 7th, is the Tesseract. That is the cube or the hypercube, as you may call it. Again, the same principle applies. And this is that each square face is the side of a completely different cube. So you have, in a sense, 7 cubes, a whole cube outside, and each face represents another completely different cube, making another 6, and therefore you have 42 faces in this particular polyhedral structure. But again, most of them are in another dimension. Again, it would be like you have a cube, and you can imagine that you can step into any face and be inside the cube as if it were simply a hollow structure. But that is what would happen in your normal 3-dimensional cube. You would simply step through one of the faces and be inside the same cube. In the hypercube, in the Tesseract, any face you step through would actually put you into a cube separate from any other cube you step through any other face to enter. Each face is the side of a completely different cube. They are all intersecting, but they do not interact. They do not meet. If you step through one face, you are in cube number 1. If you step through another face, you're in cube number 2. And the things that are contained inside cube number 1, if anything at all, will not appear inside cube number 2 when you step through face number 2. This is the whole concept of higher dimensional polyhedral physics. The final, in that sense, is really simply what you recognize as a sphere. For in that sense, it is unidirectional. You have this, in a sense, even in your own reality, and it can said to be the idea of the 0 point, even before the tetrahedron in physical terms, for when you step in a sphere is the same in all directions. This is the same in the higher dimensions as well. Again, however, when you step into the hypersphere, you now have an infinite array of possible realities that you could experience, because each point on the surface of the sphere is really a completely different sphere. So while in the physical reality, the sphere, being the 0, not the 1, will simply be that you step into a ball, and it is the same ball. In the higher dimensions, the sphere will be an infinite array of realities, an infinite array of spheres contained within the same sphere. So you have the 0 and infinity at either end of the spectrum of the interim 8, or an octave of polyhedra. Are you following along so far? All right. Close enough. Now, so the progression in terms of the sides, in terms of the faces, that is, will be, starting with the physical sphere, 0, And then you will have the tetrahedron for 4. Then you will have the cube for 6. Then you will have the equilateral octahedron for 8. Then you will have 2 dodecahedrons, 2 12-faced figures. Then you will have the icosahedron for 20. Then you will have the tetragrammaton for 20. Again, forming the bridge connector from physical to non-physical reality with the same number of faces inward that the icosahedron has outward. Then you will have the idea of the tesseract or the hypercube for 42. And then you will have the hypersphere for infinity. So this is the count. Then, as you have it, 0 to the idea then of 4, and then 6, and then 8, and then 12, 12, and then 20, 20, and then 42, and then infinity. Now, the idea herein is to understand that these forms are some of the most basic structures in what you call nature, physical reality. They are some of the underlying templates, or if you wish, building blocks for how things arrange themselves in physical reality. And what this means is arrange themselves not only atomically, even subatomically, but also on a larger scale, a macrocosmic scale. Even relationships of energy follow these patterns in general. This is not to say there are not other patterns, but when we are talking about the regular ones, that is, ones that have faces that are equal to every other face, these form the basic skeleton of the underlying template of how things are arranged, or the relationships that exist throughout many different dimensions that are all connected to your particular universal reality, physical and etheric. And, in that sense, the hyperdimensional connections as well. But we will concentrate and focus on what will be most applicable to your reality, since, of course, that happens to be where you're focused at the moment. So, let us begin by understanding that one of the ways, and it is only one, of the ways to use these forms is, whether you do this in your own imaginations, in your mind's eye, so to speak, or whether you create some kind of media format in which to view this occurring, will not really matter as long as simultaneously to any assistive tool you may be using outside, you also will allow this to be going on in your imagination at the same time. When you can begin to imagine or visualize these forms inside your mind, inside your imagination, when you can see them in your mind's eye, dimensionally, and you can begin to move them, to turn them, to spin them, to rotate them in your mind, you will find that they actually have the capability of making changes within you. First of all, they will make energetic changes. Secondly, they will actually instill neurological changes. Thirdly, they can even instill physiological changes within you. They are like skeleton keys. And when you can hold the form in energy strongly, and begin to associate with it strongly, and begin to move it in space and time, then it will move you in space and time. You will go along with it. It will carry you, in a sense, into different orientations, different perspectives, allow you to perceive and access different dimensional perspectives of information or reality. So these are the keys turning in the locks. And as you become more proficient at turning them, then you will find you will be able to open more locks, open more doors, and begin to perceive through inspirational methods, through meditational methods, through artistic expressional methods, through many different creative methods. You will be able to perceive instant insights and perceptions of things you heretofore had not imagined. And you will find that you can also use these to take these new perspectives of information and figure out ways to apply this information, to adapt this information to your physical reality, to create new things, to have new ideas, to apply new methodologies, to create new results, new effects in your reality. This is the primary utilization that we will be discussing. There will be other utilizations that we can also perhaps touch on in this first preliminary discussion about the use of these regular polyhedra. But for now, in having laid this basic foundation, let us begin with your questions so that we can cover your specific focuses, your specific interests, and see how each and every one of these can be perhaps applied to the overall foundational understanding we have given, and how this foundational understanding can be expanded relative to your questions. And then, after we have gone through your questions and discussion thereof, we can, as you would say, wrap it up with some cohesive understanding and further explanation as to how to, as you would say in your language, get the most bang for your buck in the utilization of these very fundamental but very powerful tools of energy. So, let us begin, however you wish, with your questions.
Okay, as you know, we've come together as a group, and there are, 10 or 11 of us, and these are group questions, and
Yes.
we all been assigned them, so we'll just go on with that.
Yes. Proceed however you wish.
Good day, Bashar.
Good day.
Actually, the couple questions I have to ask are ones that you may end up with.
All right.
Please,
We will see, and if so, we will put them in their appropriate
Right.
order.
Please outline in clear and specific steps how to enter and access the Tesseract.
Yes. That's for later.
Okay.
You see how psychic you are?
That's right.
You must already
I was
be
listening.
using the Tesseract.
I was listening. That's.
Yes. And
how do we prepare ourselves to use it?
all right. In a sense, we will conduct an A-B scenario, or an A-B meditation. There will be both a preparatory stage and an actualization stage, all right?
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
All right, continue.
Probably have our questions over and answered in the next 10 minutes.
Any discernment we should be aware of.
There are many discernments that you need to be aware of. It will depend upon one primary thing, and that is your intention. Your initial intention in going in. In other words, your reasons, your perspective about why you are using these things, for what reasons, what purposes, what applications are you using these techniques and these tools. Your intention, your perception, and the clarity thereof will be the primary discernments that you need to have. If you are relatively clear about your intentions as to why you are doing what you're doing with these tools, and you are relatively clear about your ideas for what you see for yourself and who you are, then you will find that in being clear on that level, almost no other discernment is really necessary. For any other kind of discernment would be, in a sense, incidental or peripheral to those fundamental, original factors of self-discernment, self-clarification. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So, to begin with, allow yourselves, and this, of course, we will get into a little bit later in the preparatory stage, allow yourselves, when you use these tools, to take a moment, or 2 or 3 or 4, there is no rush in this, to make sure that you are clear in your intention, at least in general, as to why it is you think this is a tool you want to use. What is it you think it is supposed to be doing for you? Now, yes, there will be issues from time to time of expectation and desire and so on and so forth that can be simplified, clarified, so that you do not necessarily get, shall we say, caught up in the idea that there may or is supposed to be a particular and only one particular end result of this. There can be very, very, very many different kinds of effects you will receive from utilizing these tools. And that's why it's so critical to be clear to begin with about who you are, what your intention is, because that is what will determine what you find, in a sense, on the other side of the tool. But that takes self-assessment, honest self-examination about your beliefs, your emotions, your thoughts, what it is you define reality to be, all the basic fundamental tools we have discussed for 14 of your years with regard to clarifying your personality structure. Once your personality structure is clarified through examination of thoughts, emotions, and belief system patterns, then you will find that your intentions will also be clear and your applications will also be clear and sound. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does.
All right. Does that answer your question then?
Yes.
Any other specific discernment that any of you need to, shall we say, be aware of or keep an eye out for, we will touch on in the actual exercises in the meditation. All right?
Yeah, I have another
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Okay. What are the most common obstacles that prevent us from accessing other dimensions, realities?
In a sense, I just told you.
Okay.
The most common obstacle is yourself.
Okay.
And the lack of ability to believe that you already contain everything. That is really the only obstacle that each of you have created on your planet, is you simply are not being the fullest selves you can be. Now, that's all right. You don't have to berate yourself for this. You don't have to feel guilty about this, because that will only add more judgment and more difficulty and more obstacles to your process. But the idea really, fundamentally, just to answer you simply, is it is only that. It is how you see yourselves, and that's why we stressed it so strongly, that it is imperative you have clarity about who and what you are. Because it is only your definitions of yourself that create the limitations that you call obstacles that would prevent you from accessing this all the time. Because this is natural. That's the first thing to remember. This is natural. This that we are describing to you now, and will continue to describe throughout this transmission, are only descriptions in certain forms, in certain terms, of that which is your natural self as a being, as a consciousness, as an entity. In that you create a personality structure as a mask to represent or present your consciousness in physical terms. This mask of personality can contain thoughts, perspectives, ideas that will to some degree place limitations upon your true knowing natural self's ability to access anything and everything within the infinite in whatever way is appropriate for the dimension in which you are focused. So that's really the only obstacle. Anything that we may name as a specific obstacle, watch out for this, watch out for that, will still always only be a variant of the obstacle of not believing in yourself, of not knowing who you are, of not being your true, natural, original, core self. But that's what this transformational age on your planet is all about, is remembering who you are. Not learning who you need to become, remembering who you already are. So, in knowing, this is step one, really, in knowing that it's all about simply remembering who you already are, that recognition and realization alone will accelerate your ability to utilize these tools in a much, much, much more profound way, because you will know going in it's not something you have to learn how to do that you don't already know how to do. You're just remembering what you've forgotten, and therefore it's much easier. You follow?
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes. There was another part of this question.
Oh, all right. Yes.
But I think you've answered it.
Let's make sure.
Yeah, okay. What is the key to unlocking this? And I believe you answered
Yes.
it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this one may have been handled also.
All right.
But the question is, what do we need to do to prepare ourselves?
Yes, that has been handled.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, we will get into more specific methodologies and processes in the actual preparation stage of the meditation. You follow?
Yes.
But, first and foremost, again, the idea has to do with personality structure. The most important thing you can do, any of you, to prepare yourselves, so to speak, just to use that euphemism in your language, because in some senses, even the concept of preparation can be misleading. But the most important thing you can do, to use your words, to prepare yourself, is to again take time to examine your definitions of reality in every circumstance that you believe is important to you. Look at all the things in your life that are important to you, really important and really representative of your true desires and excitement, and decide, discover, explore and discover what really are your definitional relationships to that concept. How do you define yourself relative to that concept, to that thing you say represents your ideal self? How are you, the way you define your relationship to reality, how are you different than that ideal definition you have that you say you want to be? That's the real first step of preparation, is to find out what definitions allow there to be or appear to be a difference between the so-called idealized you and the you believe yourself to be. When you discover what that difference is in definition, you will then have the automatic power to change that definition, and in changing and transforming that definition, bringing yourself either at least closer to or in perfect alignment with the vibration of your idealized self. And that is really the preparation that needs to be done, is definition and redefinition. Does that make sense? All right. Does it not make sense to anyone in particular? If so, speak up. We want to make sure you are all understanding what we mean by these translational terms.
Could you go through an example with us on something?
Yes. The idea, again, therefore, is the concept of definition, and we have used this many times. We will use this as a very brief example. Look at even the definitions of some of the words in your language, such as the idea of doubt. We have used this many times. It's a good one to use to point out the illustration. Most of you have been taught to define doubt as a lack of trust. But this is not so, at least not in the definition of our reality. Doubt is, in fact, a 100% trust in a definition that doesn't work for you, that isn't aligned to your truth. You never, ever, ever, and believe me, you can take me absolutely 100% literally on this, with no exceptions whatsoever. You never, for a second, have ever had, are not now, and never, ever, for all time, ever will have one moment where you actually lack trust. The issue and the question is not how do you learn to trust, but what definition are you putting your trust in? That's the only difference. Now, when you understand that you never lack trust, then you never have to learn how to trust. It's automatic. It's who and what you are. It's built into you as a creator. You know, as you say in your biblical language, you are made in the image of God, or whatever you wish to call creation. You are a creator, a co-creator. And therefore, it's automatic that you must trust that something at any given moment is true. Were it not so, you would have no experiential reality at all. In that you have some experience that shows you believe in something. You trust that something will happen. You may not always be consciously aware of what your trust is placed in, and that's part of the preparational experience. Find out what definition you put your trust in. That would then result in the reality that you get being the most likely one, because it's that there is no empirical reason, none whatsoever, why that particular definition has to be any more real or less real than any other definition you could put your trust in and get an experiential reflection from. All definitions of reality are equal, neutral, and neutral. None of them have any more ability to manifest than any other. The ones that manifest are the ones you put your strongest energy in, and the way you determine, your motivation for determining what definition you buy into most strongly has to do with what definitions you have been taught to believe are true. But it's only a definition, and it is only a belief about reality, not of reality. Because there is no reality. There is no reality except your definition of it. That's what reality is. Now, we understand that because of inertia, in a sense, and momentum, and agreements, and agendas, and the idea of playing a certain game by certain rules, you're going to all experience a certain level of automatic manifestation that makes it seem as if your physical reality is unchangeable except in very slight degrees. But even that is an agreement. And while you don't necessarily have to completely change the fundamental agreement, you don't have to completely divest yourself from the overall collective consciousness of your species, of your world, in order to make a change, the idea is that you can be far more flexible with your definitions, far more malleable with your definitions about the kinds of reality individually that you can experience, even within the collective. You don't have to be rigidized in the sense of being homogenized to an overall collective idea of what is supposed to happen or what is possible to happen. Within that framework of that very fundamental basic agreement that certain things will probably stay the same, such as gravity, generally, though you can change that too. But generally, for all of your personal desires, you will not necessarily need to change the idea of gravity in order to really experience fuller manifestation of your own individual truth within the collective. Because again, I remind you, and this is also very important to understand, and this is all very pertinent to the utilization of these tools. I remind you, the only true way, this is the paradox. Remember, paradox is the true power. When you're in paradox, that's when you're in your true center of power. So anytime you see paradox, you know you're on the right track. So, the true way that you support the whole is not, in a sense, by homogenizing yourself so that everyone becomes alike, but that you express your full individual uniqueness. That's how you support the whole. The example we have used, and this will be very quick so that we can move on to the next question, is the puzzle picture. All of you have played with the idea generally or know about the idea of what you call picture puzzles on your planet. You have many little pieces that you put together and they form a big picture. Now, you know, if you think about it for a moment, that the only way you're going to get that big picture is if you take each and every one of those differently shaped pieces and find out exactly where they fit. If all of those pieces decided to change their shape from their natural selves, you wouldn't be able to form the big picture, and therefore the big picture could not support or give, in a sense, validation to the individual pieces that came together to create it. We are not saying that you should never change, but that you will never necessarily need to not be yourself in any change that you make. You can change the picture on the puzzle pieces, but you don't necessarily have to change your basic shape, your truth, your nature, your true unique self in order to support the whole. When you become your unique puzzle piece fully, when you honor your original shape fully, then you fit perfectly with all the other pieces who are also willing to be their true shape, and together automatically you create the whole picture that then supports all the pieces. It is only when you try to be something you are not that the whole picture cannot be created. Does this make sense to you? All right. Does that answer your question? All right. Let's move on.
Next question.
Yes.
In preparing ourselves, is there any specific music that we can listen to for easy access?
In a sense, your favorite. However, do understand that, again, hearkening back to some of the generalized truths that you all have agreed to abide by, in recognizing that what we are actually talking about here are ratios and relationships, then you can understand that the music in general that has the highest representation of golden proportion ratios and relationships will be the kind of music in general most conducive to helping you vibrationally align with these tools, since the music that contains the same ratios as the tools themselves, the polyhedra, exhibit, that will give you the best chance for some kind of synchronization with the form. You follow?
Yes.
You follow?
Yes.
So the idea is, in general, you will find that many of what you would call your classical pieces, especially what you would call, again, your Bach and Beethoven, and your Mozart, and this is not to exclude many of your modern pieces as well, but allow yourself to feel or even analytically examine the chord structures, the types of scales used, and discover those pieces that have the highest amount and most consistent and coherent and creative use of what you would call classical golden proportion geometries in the relationship of the chords and the notes to each other, will be the ones most conducive for success in this particular context. Now, in general, though there are different ways to express this, phi ratio proportions are those ratios that are in golden sections usually referred to as a ratio of 1 to 1.618. Look for that first. Then, allow yourself also the opportunity, if you are not necessarily the analytical type, to feel which pieces of music vibrate you, move you, and I mean even move you emotionally. Those pieces you can intuit. And the ones that move you strongest are the ones that you need to use. In general, it will be pieces that will allow you to experience a calm but profound sense of energy, of life, of fullness, bigness, if you wish, large-scale energies and consciousnesses expressing these things, if you wish. These are the types of music to look for, and they can be of great assistance, since all is vibration, and any form you can bring vibration, sound, light, what have you, will assist you in harmonizing and synchronizing with these polyhedral tools. Yes, does that answer your question?
That leaves out Mr. Weston.
It leaves nothing out, but again understand that there may be variations of any particular kind or type of music that may exhibit more or less of the kind of ratios that we are talking about. And of course, that can also vary from piece to piece. In any general type of music, there can be a piece that can exhibit a high degree or a high amount of phi ratio harmonics. Yes?
Thank you. Is there an example? Capital T by Beethoven.
Again, there are many examples. But it will depend also upon intention and focus for what kind of energy you want to utilize or express. For example, one moment. Let us begin, as a brief example, with the understanding that a given piece of music, depending upon the kind of harmonics that it harbors, will have a slightly different effect if you use that same piece of music while concentrating or meditating on a different polyhedron. You follow? So, herein, let's explore a brief example with what you would call the composition from your composer of Holst Mars, since that seems to be timely now, with regard to your explorations. If you are not familiar with this piece, then you can, at your own convenience later, become familiar with the piece in the planets called Mars by Holst. And you can understand that that is a very strong harmonic piece for allowing there to be, when used appropriately, strong regenerative physical healing properties to link you, to anchor you, to ground you, paradoxically enough, to the Earth. Since the Earth, in a sense, is the polar opposite of Mars, you can use Mars with various tetrahedral tools to form a gateway paradoxical link-up to use that energy and translate and apply that energy, that vibration, to ground you to the Earth and energize your body simultaneously with the proper male and female polarities to achieve balance. You follow? So that's one example. In using Mars, beginning with the tetrahedron, you will find that by simply allowing there to be what you have recently called a three-dimensional Star of David, in other words, a tetrahedron pointing up, intersecting a tetrahedron pointing down, you follow? And slowly rotating, both in a clockwise and counterclockwise direction, one pointing up in that sense, rotating clockwise, the one pointing down, rotating counter, or vice versa. You can reverse them as long as they are going in opposite directions. And with that vibration from that particular piece of music, you will find that that will function as a prismatic lens to take that vibration, and as you visualize these two tetrahedrons intersecting and turning within each other, it will help in the energization of your body and the balancing of the polarity of the male and female energy within you, symbolically represented by the idea of Earth and Mars. You follow? Mars and Earth. So that is one example. And we will get into more of this later. Thank you.
Good evening, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I have 3 questions, and you have indicated that you're going to answer a couple of them, and one you already have.
All right. Nothing like efficiency.
Yes. Could I refer to the Shri Yantra?
Yes.
It has been, the circle around it has been, the mathematics of that circle have been used as a basis for creating music based on the 7 triangles, the nine triangles.
Yes, 9. Yes, all right.
And I would assume that that has great power in the way you've been speaking now.
Yes, and it correlates to the 9 levels of regular polyhedra that we have already discussed and described. Each of those triangles correlates to each of those polyhedral levels and evokes from them their specific and unique vibrational resonances. In that you can use them all together, that is a master set. And in using all of those vibrations together as a master set, you can really unlock something powerful. And so this is why, in ancient times, it was understood, and this is a technique and an art that has to some degree been forgotten, the idea of the designing of mantras and yantras were for a shorthand encodation into gleaning and activating those specific resonant frequencies all at once in the proper and appropriate relational harmonic chord that would activate them all simultaneously. It's like a shorthand version of what we are doing in this overall process description today. So, anything that has to do with meditational utilization in yogic practice or chanting practice of those mantras and yantras will to some degree also be an accelerative way to utilize much of the information that we will be discussing today, because they are all correlated in ancient times, and you can use them that way now when you understand what you're doing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening.
And to you, good day.
It is. Thank you. How do we go into and access the different realities?
All right. Again, to some degree, we will experience a little bit of this later, but to give you a little bit of a foundation, let us go back to the description we have already given of the Earth-Mars connection and the two interpenetrating, counter-rotating tetrahedron, one pointing up, one pointing down. You follow?
Yes.
All right. If you will, to some degree, imagine those two tetrahedral structures, one pointing up, one pointing down, counter-rotating, slowly, gently, smoothly, within each other. The idea will be that if you approach this from a particular point of view, let us say that you imagine that you move into it and into the center of it, so that in looking up, you see part of the structure turning. Looking down, you see another part of the structure turning. Standing still, looking ahead, you see the intersections merging, demerging, remerging with each other. If you learn how to perceive these things, and this is why sometimes visual aids can be of benefit. In other words, now, especially, you have the ability to create what you would call animations or computer graphic animations that will help you visualize these things. But if you can do that, then the idea is that you will begin to perceive that each and every variant, each and every intersection, each and every blending, each and every crossing will itself be like a different tone or a different key on an instrument. You will begin to gravitate toward those particular patches or areas that to you represent the strongest correlation or synchronization with your original intention, which is to be your fullest self. So your original intention to be your fullest self will help you gravitate toward those areas of vibrational resonance that will open up doorways that are most specifically already and automatically designed to bring you the information that will help you with that fundamental idea or intention. You follow? Yes, no, maybe?
Partially. I could use a little more.
All right. Let's simplify this example. Let us imagine that you have your spectrum in front of you. You have your red moving into your orange, into your yellow, into your green, into your blue, into your indigo, and into your violet. Have you got that?
Yes.
All right. Are you, for any reason whatsoever, whether you know the reason or not, attracted to any one area on that spectrum more than any other?
Yes.
All right. What area did you gravitate toward first?
Violet.
Pure violet or a shade in between? Where are you in the violet? Are you toward the indigo? Are you purely in the violet?
Toward the indigo.
All right. This then is an indication to you that your strongest fundamental desire is for the specific reaching and integrating with the higher self, the higher soul understanding, the higher soul point of view, that overview. This is what this is generally indicative of as your fundamental intention at that particular moment. Do you follow this analogy?
Yes. I'm hearing music.
All right, very
this
good.
Thing go around.
Very good, very good. What are you hearing? Can you describe it?
Tones,
Yes.
not a particular song, but just
Tones.
little sounds.
Yes. All right.
As each
Very
thing
good.
turns, it makes a specific sound.
Very good. This, again, as we have said, will be part of the idea, part of the experience. It will be vibration in some form or another, and you will find the chord that represents you, and it will pull you. You will gravitate to those sections that will be at that moment, not that they won't change later, but at that moment, most strongly synchronized with your highest intention. And in that, in letting yourself be immersed, here's the key. Just as you let yourself be attracted to the violet, and you let yourself go into it, let yourself be attracted and let it overwhelm you. Let it go through you. Let it wash through you. Let it immerse you. Let it surround you. Let it completely engulf you. And that will be the state. That will be the frequency. At that moment, that then, if you open up your imagination, if you open up your inspiration, if you open up your creativity, if you open up your heart at that moment, you will start to receive feelings, information, pictures, insights, visualizations, sounds, all the things that are germane specifically to the vibrational frequency and the tools and the ideas and bits of information that are most conducive, if you will use them and apply them, to being your fullest self at that moment. You follow?
Thank you.
That's how to use this in general. And again, we will go through this in the exercise meditation at the end, but you are beginning to get the point.
Yes.
All right.
I like that very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Number 11.
Yes.
Well, the Tesseract...
Now, one moment.
Oh, pardon?
Before you go on, it is critical. Critical.
Yes.
Not just for you, all of you. Critical that you understand. When we say that you can really go into these shapes, when we say give yourself whatever assistance you can by building these shapes, by creating computer animations of these shapes, whatever you can do to enhance your ability as strongly as you can to fully feel the fullest form of the experience of being engulfed by these shapes and all of the nuances within them. Whatever you can do, do it. And I mean do it. You will find, and this may not seem at first to make a difference, but it will. You will find that if you hold back even one iota in expressing your full creative ability to simulate or manifest some kind of environment as best as you can that would give you the strongest sense of actually interacting with these shapes. If you hold back one iota, you may find that one iota can actually be the difference between achieving the desired effect or not achieving it at all. This is heavily, heavily reliant on your willingness to fully explore and actively experiment in creating the environment in all ways you can. In other words, you need to immerse yourself. You need to, in a sense, almost overwhelm yourself with these shapes. Now, I do not mean the following in a negative way, but just to illustrate the point of how strongly This needs to be infused within your energy. For the purpose and for the duration and for the timing that you want to achieve an effect, that you want there to be an effect, you must become obsessed in all ways, shapes, and form you can with creating these shapes. Cut them out of paper, cut them out of cardboard, make animations, make drawings, make sounds that go with them, get music, get color, get light, get everything, every ingredient. Otherwise, it will be like baking a cake and leaving out an ingredient. It's not going to rise, or it's not going to taste like you want it to taste unless you have everything there. So, one of the strongest things in using what we are going to talk about is not only the idea of just meditating and just seeing it, but really filling your world with these shapes until they are so second nature. Here's the key. Until they are so second nature, you start to dream about them. When you start to dream about them, when you start to think in them, then you will be speaking the higher dimensional language. And when you can speak the higher dimensional language, you will understand when the higher dimensional language is spoken to you. It's just like what your people say about learning any other language. When you start to think in the other language, that's when you really know how to speak the other language. Up to that point, you are to some degree fluent, but up to that point, you're simply kind of mimicking. It's not in your blood. And therefore, you may have a little bit of difficulty understanding someone else when they speak that language very quickly. You have to say, slow down, I didn't quite get that. I'm not following you. I can't think that fast. When you start dreaming of these shapes, when you start breathing these shapes, when you start thinking in these shapes, then when the messages from the higher dimensions come through these gates and shapes to you, you will automatically know how to translate them back into the language of your physical reality that will make it clear how to apply the information. Does that make sense? This is one of the most important things we have to tell you about how to utilize anything and everything that we're going to talk about in this transmission. Do you all get the point?
So you're saying total immersion, like learning a language?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Now then, by all means, do continue.
All right. Will the Tesseract help put us permanently into the fourth dimension?
In a sense, yes. Although, again, it will remind you. You will remind yourself through it that you already exist in the fourth dimension. And therefore, you'll become used to knowing you already exist in the fourth dimension. And you can utilize these tools to help you remember that, yes. And permanency, again, has to do with choice and intention. Why wouldn't it be permanent? Unless there is some reason why you wouldn't want it to be. And if there is some reason why you wouldn't want it to be, then it's your reason. And that's all right, too. But the point is that they will not have the power to do anything. They will be used by you to remind yourself that you are already there permanently. And if you know that, then there will be nothing to take you away from there, because being there will always be your choice. You follow?
Yes.
Remember, it's not a matter of slipping out of something. You never slip out of anything. You choose to go where you go, consciously or unconsciously. You may call the unconscious choice a slip, but it isn't really a slip, and that's one of those definitions that would be helpful for you to change. Because as long as you believe you can slip, then you'll experience an unconscious choice as a slip. You won't know it's a choice, it'll remain unconscious, and you will never give yourself the opportunity to know that it is a choice that you can change. Make sense?
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more.
Yes.
Will fourth dimension reality perspective enable us to better access other levels of reality and dimensions?
You already know the answer to that one.
Okay.
Does being on the fourth rung make it easier to get to the fifth?
Absolutely.
Then you know how to climb a ladder, and your question answers itself.
Okay.
Because if your definition of fourth dimensional or fourth density reality is that it has a broader perspective, is that it allows you to see more information, then would not more information make it easier to see yet more information?
And so on and so on.
And so on and so on. So, yes, and without in any way, shape, or form meaning any judgment or offense whatsoever, but just to illustrate a point to you, perhaps to help drive it home, that was a very third density question.
Okay.
You follow?
Yes.
To wonder whether or not being on a higher level will allow you to see farther is the kind of doubt or trust in realities that don't work for you that we were talking about before.
This is very familiar.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bashar, is this a form of time travel?
In a sense, yes, it can be utilized in a variety of ways that will allow you to interpenetrate what you would call time streams. However, you must understand something very important about the concept you have on your planet of so-called time travel. First of all, again, number one. Everything and everywhere and every when is here and now. All times, in other words, coexist simultaneously. Does that make sense to you, first of all? All right. So, again, let's fine-tune the definition. Are you really traveling when you don't really go anywhere? No. What are you doing? You're changing your point of view. You're changing your perspective vibrationally. Then you can have an experience of another stream of space and or time and space. Then, in a sense, you could call that euphemistically time travel. But in fact, it's actually more real to say that it's traveling through you than you traveling through it. Because you are the modulator, and the frequencies are shifting within you. Therefore, time, in a sense, is traveling through you. You're not traveling through it. Does that make sense, second of all? All right, now, here's something else to understand, and this is a little bit of a linear perspective of time travel in the sense of going back, quote-unquote, into your own past, quote-unquote. Are you with me? This is what you would call your quote-unquote, classic science fiction time travel scenario. So, now, I'm going to ask you personally, the questioner, a question, if I may. All right. Let us say you were going to decide to travel back one day, 24 of your hours in time. All right? All right. Now, do you remember what you were doing 24 hours ago, roughly? Pick something roughly that you did yesterday.
Yes.
All right. Now, can you give us a general idea of what you were doing?
Yes, I was cooking preparatory for tonight.
Cooking. All right. Were you in your or someone else's kitchen?
Yes, mine.
All right. Now, let us say you now decide to go back to that point.
Yes.
In time, all right?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember being in your kitchen?
Yes.
All right. You remember generally what you were doing, yes?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember seeing another version of yourself anywhere in your kitchen at the same time?
No, I wish I had. Okay.
Do you?
No.
All right. Then, understand this. You cannot go back to that kitchen because you didn't. Do you understand? You weren't there twice. So you can't go back there because going back there is not a part of what you already experienced when you were there. If you did go back, you would have already, yesterday, experienced another you in the kitchen. You follow me so far?
Yes, I got it.
So, when you do go back, so to speak, into the past, into the kitchen that you were in 24 hours ago, you will not be going to the same kitchen. You will be going to the kitchen of another parallel reality you. Do you understand?
Yes.
And that you will experience the doubling of herself. Because that will be part of her history. While you already know it wasn't part of yours. Do you follow me?
Yes, I do.
It isn't that you cannot time travel, but what you're doing when you're time traveling is going into parallel time tracks that may seem to be almost identical to the one you remember being in, but it actually isn't the same one. Because you already know you weren't there. Because you didn't meet yourself, so you know that when you go back into the time, into the past, you will be going into a parallel reality and meeting another version of you in another reality altogether. And that will be normal for her reality, because then nothing will contradict the idea of what you say you've already experienced in your reality 24 hours ago. Now, here's an added twist, just to make things even more complex. You can, however, identify your consciousness from her point of view. You can, in essence, experience her parallel reality meeting herself. This is where it gets a bit sticky. It would seem as if the you think yourself to be were meeting the future you who had come back in time. But mechanically, technically, this is not what's happening. What's happening is the you are here that's deciding to go back in time, that meets up with the parallel reality you, will have already also decided to perceive the parallel reality experience through the parallel reality you, meeting up with the you that decided to go back in time. So it will seem as if you are having the experience, but you won't be in your time track. You will simply be seeing through the eyes of your parallel reality self and having her experience simultaneously to allow you the experience of what that would be like to have experienced meeting yourself from the future coming back into the past. Does any of this make any sense at all to you? Are you following this along?
Yes.
Are there going to be two over there or one over there?
Well, in fact, there is an infinite number.
Okay.
But again, when we are delineating the various time tracks, it will depend upon what arrangement you have made as to how many of yourselves or versions of yourself you will perceive at any one given access point.
So the experiencer.
The experiencer, again, is all of you. But you will each feel that you are the only experiencer. In other words, every component will feel that it is the only experiencer, even though all of the components are experiencing simultaneously. And from the higher point of view would experience the whole idea at once of all the components' experiences. But that's another level. Did that make sense?
Getting clearer.
All right. I'll put it this way. Imagine that you have a twin sister. I'm still talking to the original questioner.
Yes.
All right. Imagine that you have a twin sister.
Got it.
Now, imagine that your twin sister finds out that you actually are triplets and finds another twin sister, a triplet sister. But you don't know about that yet. You follow me?
Yes.
All right. She has now met the third sister. She then tells you about the third sister and recounts her meeting so strongly that you feel like you are there. In fact, you go into it so strongly you actually imagine that you are there. You start to identify with your twin sister so strongly you actually literally experience all the sensations of what she experienced when she met the third sister. So you really feel like you experienced it too. Then the third sister tells you what it was like for her to meet your twin. And you experience it that fully from her point of view. You follow me?
Yes.
Now you have literally 3 points of view. Your original, your twin sisters, and the newly discovered triplets' point of view. All mixing into this one event of meeting each other. Now just take that to the degree to where it doesn't feel like there's any difference from you hearing about the experience or having the experience. You follow me?
Yes.
So while on one hand you can actually feel like you had the experience, on the other hand, mechanically, what's actually happened is you have heard about the experience. You know it exists. It's contained within your consciousness somehow and somewhere. And if you let it, it can actually become a true experience for you if you identify with it strongly enough, and that can create a reality for you. But that's how you need to look at the mechanics of what happened, rather than actually thinking that you per se, the you think yourself to be, were the sister that met the triplet. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So again, we have paradox. On one hand, you can have the experience in any way, shape, or form, and in every way, shape, or form that would seem to make no difference as to whether it was you or your sister that had the experience. And on the other hand, there is still a differentiation as to exactly what path was followed to bring the information to you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, to wrap it all up simply, can you time travel? Yes and no. However, here really is the bottom line, so that this entire very complicated story can be simplified and rendered down into a usable piece of information for you. You can have whatever experience you want to have. Yes. Just that you understand that because of the way you have structured your reality, I have told you this story and explained this convoluted mechanism so that there isn't confusion in you. If and when you start having these experiences and you start seeing all sorts of strange contradictory vibrations going along, that you don't think you're going crazy. What you're seeing are the currents and the eddies of all the interacting and intersecting infinite probable reality directions of how this experience, this one event, is being experienced from all the different points of view and parallel reality time tracks, regardless of what you're experiencing from yours. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, does that help you?
Very much.
All right. Now, here's something else to understand, and this is a little bit of a linear perspective, since you... Anything else?
Yes, I have a second question.
Right.
Do we lose track of our physical time?
In the way that you probably mean that, you can, yes. However, again, more specifically, when you have the experience on your planet of losing track of time, what you're actually doing is not creating it. Do you understand? When you don't experience the passage of time, it's not because really in most situations, though it's possible, yes, but in most situations it's not because you just weren't paying attention. It's that you're actually not creating as much time as you were before. When you live in the moment, because there actually is only one. There's only one moment. Everything you experience as a series of different moments is the same moment from a different point of view. There's only one now. Totally one moment. So when you live more in the moment, whatever that means to you experientially, you actually are creating less differentiation. You are allowing all moments to be the same moment from a different point of view, And when you don't experience the passage of time, you actually don't age. Do you follow?
Yes.
For whatever that amount of time is that you collapsed, you actually don't age that amount of time. That's why living more in the moment makes you seem ageless and eternal. Do you follow?
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Very much so.
Thank you.
And that I just wanted to clarify that these questions that they're asking, I know, are group questions.
Yes.
Individual.
I know that.
I thought so, but we just want to make sure.
Oh, all right. Have you made sure?
Thank you. Yes, I made sure.
All right. You must understand that from our perspective, no matter what format we participate in, all questions are individual and group questions. Otherwise, the group wouldn't be here.
Oh, I understand. It's just
all right.
That,
yes, I know.
We ask dumb questions. It's all of us asking it collectively here.
Now, not meaning any judgment again whatsoever, and not meaning this really too literally, but again to make a point. The only dumb questions are the ones you don't ask.
Thank you.
You know, dumb as in silent? All right.
Okay, the next question is,
yes.
How do we actually bring things back with us?
Ah. All right. Now, if you will remember what we've already said on a couple of occasions here in this transmission, you will remember that you're not actually going anywhere, and therefore you're not actually bringing anything back. Why? Everything is already here. So the first secret to bringing something back is to understand it's already here. When you start to really begin to immerse yourself in this and learn this as a language and start to break down the barriers of segregation and separation that you have created that makes it seem as if things are actually really somewhere else when they're not, then as those things break down, you will start to perceive that everything really is here. And it will simply be a matter of focus and attention and intention as to your ability to realize that in all the ways that you may take that phrase. Realize that. Does that make sense to you?
Good.
You understand again the analogy of your television set, in that you know that all the programs you could possibly watch at any given moment are all there at the same time, are they not? But you only see one because that's where your channel is tuned. You know they're all there. What do you have to do to see another program? Change the channel. You didn't have to really go anywhere else. You didn't really have to bring the program from anywhere it already wasn't. All you had to do was switch frequencies and bingo, as you say, there it is, in full living color. So, it's the same thing with physical reality. Everything is here. If you think about it as a holographic matrix of every possible vibration, every possible energy frequency that represents every possible physical manifestation that's applicable in your reality, they're all overlapping like the television airwaves. They're all vibrating right here, right now, but you only see or experience as manifested solidly the things that are representative of the frequency channel you happen to be on at any given moment. Change the channel and pop, there are other things. The secret, so to speak, that is no secret at all, of true magic, in the sense of making things appear and disappear in front of the crowds, is to be able to know that they're already there, to shift to that frequency, and to telepathically get the crowd to agree to shift to the frequency with you. Then they can see it too. That's how things are magically manifested. Because it's by agreement still. You have to have a shared reality for anyone else to experience what you're experiencing, because each of you is your own universe. Each of you is your own reality. And you have to experience commonality by agreement telepathically. So, if you can then be focused in the moment enough with yourself to shift that frequency, and can learn to give off the frequency of that new reality through unconditional love, then everyone will pick up on that unconditional love, will automatically tune into that frequency, and oh, lo and behold, look what we see appearing before us. Magic. How did that get there? You understand? And disappearing is the same thing in reverse. You're just shifting it back into a frequency that, in a sense, is beyond your immediate perception in the consensus agreed upon reality. That's all it is. Hide and seek with yourself from one part of yourself to another. That's all. Does that make sense? So that is the fundamental, essential answer to your question of how do you bring things back. You're not bringing them back, they're here.
And you already answered the next question.
So thank you.
We'll go on to the next one. Who is?
Yes.
How do we obtain a frequency match and know we are there?
All right. Again, let us go back a little bit to what we discussed about once you immerse yourself and start to see patterns that you specifically gravitate to, you will know that those are aligned with you at this particular moment for a reason, because they are most representative of your frequency at that point. Once you allow yourself to harmonize with those frequencies you first find yourself gravitating to, you'll then be able to use the information that comes to you from that particular gravitational attraction to begin to become more specific about tuning your intention to other things. But again, by definition, for the most part, the thing you are attracted to gravitate to first will be most representative of the strongest thing you need to be attracted to first. Don't insist on bringing one thing into manifestation when you're obviously attracted to a vibration that doesn't yet automatically contain that thing. But let yourself know that being attracted to that particular frequency first is the stepping stone on the path ultimately to whatever it is that really is germane for you to manifest in your reality, and go with the flow. Walk through the doors. Follow the path of gravitational attraction. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe?
How to actually change your frequency.
Yes. You change your frequency with every thought. With every new perspective, your frequency is changed. This is why we are saying you can take your cue from the frequency you are attracted to allow you to know that that's your frequency, and when you get into it, when you use it, when it immerses itself within you, when you're infused with it, it will automatically give you new insights that in and of themselves, by definition, are new frequency domains within it that you can then see again which ones you're attracted to. That's how you change. In other words, you always aim for yourself. You always aim, to put it simply, for the thing that excites you the most. That will automatically contain all the frequency shifts that you will find also exciting to follow. You'll follow the most exciting one that it contains, and that one will contain another seed that you will find most exciting, and that one will contain another seed that you will find most exciting, and all you have to do is follow that excitement, and you'll constantly be shifting your frequencies in the appropriate direction for who you are. Because your highest excitement is who you are. It's the vibration of who you are. That's how you change your frequency. You see, you're making this determination as if you're supposed to change your frequency somehow in a way that is not in alignment with the vibrational frequency of your own natural true self. But the idea is that you don't have to do it that way. As you say in your language, that's putting the cart before the horse. Let the horse lead. Let your excitement lead you into how to automatically change your frequency. Don't say, how do I change my frequency to go toward my excitement? Go toward your excitement and let it help you learn how to change your frequency. It's automatic then. It's a flow then. It's not a struggle then. It's not a quandary then. You can then move instead of standing there going, how do I put my right foot out? Just do it. Just walk. And you will change as you walk.
So we don't have to be so highlighted on what frequency.
No. Again, look at your television analogy.
Right.
You know, in a sense, in a simplified form, that you're excited about watching this program. All right, you know it's on channel 2. You know it's on channel 4. You know it's on channel 7. All right. But you don't really sit there and go, well, now exactly what frequency is that? If I don't figure out the exact frequency of the actual transmission and broadcast, I can't find it. Of course you can. You have the intention, you know where it is in general, you go for it, as you say. You understand?
Oh, that makes sense.
All right.
Okay. Next question. Explain how we can create knowing what our frequency is at any given moment, either intuitively or by using some kind of a device.
You're asking for an actual reading of the frequency?
I think the idea is that a lot of times individuals would like to know what their frequency is, but at this point maybe they feel the only way they can know that is by asking you.
I see. All right. Number 1. You can always know by asking yourself. When you get to a point where you are extremely clear with yourself, you will know. But herein lies the paradox. When you get to a point of being extremely clear with yourself, you won't care. And so because you won't care, you won't know. And it won't matter. Do you understand? That's the paradox. Let's wipe out the self-measurement in that sense. Where am I? Am I at 124,000 cycles per second? I'm at 124,500 cycles per second. Oh no, today I'm at 123. I must be doing something wrong. You're going to spend too much time focusing on the idea of the numbers and not enough time focusing on the experience of being where you are. Do you follow?
Yeah.
So I guess there's no way, huh?
Yes, there is. All right. Here it is. I'll give it to you this way. Understand it's a choice, however. You can either be clear within yourself, follow your joy, not care what frequency you're at because you know it must be the right one because you're doing what excites you, or you can say that what excites you is to simply know your frequency. Okay. But if that's what excites you, then that's it. That's it. Yes. In other words, look at this. If it is really the most exciting thing at this given moment for you to know your frequency of energy, and then with clarity, because this is representative of the most exciting thing that you want, you know it, 156,000 cycles per second. All right, well, now that you know it, now what do you want to do?
Right, well, and there's no point in doubting it because
I understand, but the point is, yes, you can know it. However, in the very next instant, when you become excited about doing something else, your frequency isn't 156,000 cycles per second anymore. It was only, or down, but it's only at that frequency when that is the result of that particular moment's excitement to know what the frequency is. In the very next moment, it's changed.
But to use it as biofeed kind of...
but you can't even always do that. Many of you don't even do that. I'll give you an example. Let's say you became very excited about knowing what your frequency was, and you go, all right, I'm clear, that's it, that's my highest excitement, I want to know. Bing, I have it, 156,000 cycles per second. Is that all?
No, then...
Right. Pay attention. Pay attention. Any measurement of comparison at all, in a sense, will contradict what it is you say you want. If you use that vibration as a yardstick in any way, you are, in some sense, taking yourself out of the moment. Do you follow? Now, I'm not saying in the next moment you can't be a higher frequency, but the only way you're going to do that is to actually completely forget where you were a moment ago. So it doesn't relate. It really doesn't relate, because one moment is not really connected to the next until you make a connection. So even if you say, I'm at 156,000 cycles per second. That is better than I was yesterday. I must be improving. You flatten the whole line right there. Because you're making a measurement, a comparative measurement, that actually has absolutely no relevance to where you actually could be in the next moment, depending on what excites you the most. It has really no relevance except for that moment. No relevance to any other moment whatsoever. So you can't really use it in that sense as a measurement of improvement.
Well, why can't you use it as a measurement to achieve a certain in the same way that you use meditation waves like alpha and beta and theta?
That you can do, but that has nothing to do with the idea of measuring an improvement. It has to do only with the recognition that a certain frequency might be conducive to a certain state that you have experienced before, and that if you simply recreate that frequency, you might be capable of recreating other things in a similar fashion. But again, it doesn't relate to any other moment, except that one. But that also doesn't imply that you have to even really know what the frequency is per se. All you have to really do is, in a sense, recognize the state. Do you follow? It doesn't necessarily have to be labeled with a particular number, is all we are actually saying. Because the way the question was asked was in reference to knowing the particular frequency number.
But for instance, there's a frequency of the rotation of, forgive me for being ignorant as to what it was.
That's all right.
Then that has a certain energy.
Yes.
We're relating that number to that energy just in the same way that we're naming a state as theta that doesn't necessarily have a name. We're naming it as human beings.
All right. I understand what you are saying, that there is perhaps a corresponding numerical value for any particular energy state. But the point we are making is this. If you create with your excitement the knowledge that you are now vibrating at 156,000 cycles per second, and you say, all right, I've got to remember 156,000 cycles per second, that's the vibrational energy level. I want to remember that frequency number. Now, you tell me, what's going to happen if you focus on 156,000 cycles per second? No. What's going to happen when you focus on that? And in that state, what was the only piece of information you received? Just the vibrational frequency. So there's nothing else you can do in that by remembering that number. All you can do is access that number. Do you follow? That was the number, that was the frequency that gave you the information of the number. If you go back to that number, all it will do is give you the state and the frequency that is germane to accessing the number.
So in other words,
like a loop.
It's a self-contained loop.
In other words, there's not actually a set, it's not like a scale that you move up and down. It's more like just anywhere along the, so can be accessed instantly.
All right, one moment. This will require a little bit of what you call a primary physics lesson. Listen for the paradox. We are not saying there is not a corresponding frequency number to a state in which you can create other things. What we are saying is you either in that state create other things and don't know what the number is, or you know what the number is and can't create other things. In your physics, it's called the uncertainty principle. You can neither know simultaneously the momentum of an object, the speed of an object, and at the same time know its position. Do you understand?
Well, what about like...
Wait. Do you understand the uncertainty principle in your quantum physics?
Yes. Basically.
All right, listen again. It is important that you understand it before you start asking more questions or making more statements. If you throw a ball, you can know that the ball may be going at 100 miles an hour. But if you measure how fast it's going, then you can't focus on any given point of the ball's trajectory. If you focus on a given point of where the ball is at any given moment, then in a sense, the measurement freezes the ball and you can't know how fast it's going. You can only know where it is, or you can know how fast it's going. You cannot know where it is and how fast it's going simultaneously. So, with this frequency idea, yes, There is a corresponding frequency to every particular state, and in that state, you can do perhaps many things that you could not necessarily do at a lower frequency state. And we are not saying that you can't empirically understand that, well, I know I can do generally this at 156,000 cycles per second, and I know I can't do it at 144. But the point is that when you're in that state, you don't really know exactly what your frequency is, because if you did, that's all you would know. You would not necessarily be able to manifest anything else at that moment if you knew both exactly the frequency and were trying to experience the state simultaneously.
Well, what I was talking about is being able to use it, like biofeedback, to increase it to a higher and higher level so that you can get up to like what you talked about before, the 333, the 666, to be able to access those other realms.
I understand what you are asking, but I am telling you that you are taking the long way around. Okay. The answer to your question in that sense is, if you have created for yourself a moment where you know what frequency you are at when you're in a high energy state, then the next time simply aim for the feeling of the high energy state and don't care what the actual number is. That's what will allow you to expand beyond that frequency and do more.
I was wondering if you...
Wait a minute. Speak up so that all may hear what you have to share.
For telepathy.
Telepathy.
Yes, when you're experiencing actually hearing another person's voice or words.
Yes.
Within yourself.
Yes.
What frequency level?
It does not require necessarily that you attain a particular frequency level to experience telepathy. All it requires is that you be on the same frequency as someone else. One moment, do you understand that?
So depending on...
Telepathy simply means you are synchronized with the frequency of the individual you are sharing the thought with. It's just resonance identification. You can be at a very low frequency and experience telepathy as long as you're both on the same frequency.
I got it.
You figure that out now?
Yeah. Got that.
Does that help you?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
All right.
Oh, I have another one for you.
All right, speak up so that all
right.
may hear.
Before you do that,
Wait.
I want to clarify.
Yes.
Is it a general truth then to say that judgment removes you from the experience? Yeah. And in that way
it removes you from that experience and gives you the experience of judgment.
Yes. So
all things are an experience. And if you want to experience judgment, then judge.
But it's either or. I mean, if you're in the business of saying, wow, I'm doing really well, that's taking you away from what you're trying to do.
In some senses, yes. As you mean that pragmatically, yes. And in fact, in some ways, we are not saying that you cannot recognize the state that you are in. For there is a constant state of recognition on what you would call higher frequency levels that translates out to an overwhelming sense of unconditional love and gratitude for what it is you are experiencing simultaneous within the experience itself as part of the experience. The idea, therefore, though, is that at the moment you start to, in a sense, analyze that, you somehow reduce the frequency. You follow?
And that's why you can't create what you want if you have doubt or any other feelings around what you want to create. You just have to keep vibrating there.
All right. Now, again, yes, on one empirical level. But let's keep this honest, because whatever it is, now pay attention, this is critical, this is critical, this is critical. Whatever it is empirically you create, by definition, is what you wanted. Or you would have gotten something else. And when I say what you wanted, it means that's the motivational, definitional result that is in sync with what you strongly believe to be true at that moment. Therefore, in a sense, it is what you wanted, even if empirically you know there's an idealized idea above and beyond that. What you get is what you want, because you have to learn how to use that in a way, in a functional, constructive, positive way to allow yourself to understand how this is a part of getting that instead of an interruption in getting that. So this is still what you want. In other words, as we have said, what is needs to be fully accepted before what is can become something else. If you don't use the stepping stone that's there, you leave a gap and can't get to the stepping stone beyond. So you have to acknowledge that what is what you wanted. And by acknowledging that what is what you wanted, you can learn how to use what is in a constructive and positive way, seeing it as part of everything that is your excitement instead of an interruption in it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Are we ready for the next?
Yeah, we're ready for the next.
Here we go.
Yes.
Please clarify and explain space-time versus time-space.
All right.
And how they relate in third dimension reality.
All right. Space-time is what you call matter. Time-space is what you call energy. Do you understand this?
Yeah. Well, no, we don't understand.
No, we don't understand
That's why we want help.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because you've said that before. We don't understand
Yes.
what that means.
All right. It, to some degree, goes back to the idea of the prime radiant, being that there is really only one single entity, if you wish to call it a particle, that is fine, one single particle that rushes around at infinite speed, being everywhere at once, being every particle that you perceive as multiple particles. It's all the same one particle rushing around at infinite speed, interacting with itself. So, when it does this in a certain pattern, when it intersects and interacts with itself at infinite speed in a certain geometric pattern, it's called space-time. It's called matter. It's called structure. It's called organization. It's called order. When it does it in between, whatever is in between that is time-space, energy, chaos, randomness. So, this is very pertinent to what we are doing here, because what you call these geometric solids, these regular solids, the lines that define the edges of the solids, are the geometric definition of where this infinitely fast-moving particle intersects with itself in a way that creates, in your perception, regularity and order out of randomness. And that geometric relationship of itself to itself is called space-time or matter. You follow that? Are you sure?
Perfectly.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. And we had one other question.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the movie Contact?
Yes.
What Jodie Foster's character experienced
Yes.
in the spacecraft?
Yes.
And traveling through the wormholes to this other dimensional
Yes.
communication.
Yes.
Is that similar to what you can experience by projecting your consciousness into the Tesseract?
Yes.
And that was a really good representation
Yes.
of being in other dimensions.
Yes.
Oh.
This is why we say it is important for you to give yourself visualizations, especially in the immersive environment of that which is also accompanying the light with sound. Because then your emotions, your senses, everything is, in a sense, caught up in that, and you glean the experience more fully and can bring that experience to bear on understanding your energy and what it is you really are as an expanded being. Because everything you're feeling in that experience when you're watching such things is the energy you actually are.
Right. So you can, by recreating what you experience when you see the movie, you
Yes.
can become more adept at
Yes.
doing that.
And if you will have also paid attention, you will have noticed that intuitively the designers used a very geometric structure that surrounded the sphere to represent the idea of regular polyhedral structures. Do you remember?
You're talking about the loops that went around it?
The loops are part of it, but if you will have paid attention, the actual capsule, the spherical capsule,
Right.
was surrounded by a polyhedral structure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought it was to
Yes.
begin with.
It
some
was
sort
a
of
very strong and direct analogy of entering into a dimensional polyhedral tesseract type structure, yes.
That was terrific. Great. Okay, that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you for your co-creation.
And yours?
Could you explain what a 45-degree angle turn and how to access other realities and how this relates?
All right. We will relate this to you from one particular direction that dovetails most strongly into the work that you're going to be doing within this particular workshop. Imagine, if you will, a sphere. Make it, if you wish, clear, transparent. Have you got it? All right. Now, do you see a point at the center? All right. Now, there are three vectors that are important to understand for the idea of the first three dimensions that will then take you into the fourth. The three vectors are 180 degrees, 90 degrees, which is half of that, and 45, which is again half of that. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you now focus on this point at the center of the sphere and go 180 degrees, let's just say for now up and down. You've got the North Pole point and the South Pole point. Have you got it? So you have a line, like an axis, going through the center of the sphere. To the point on top, point in the middle, point on the bottom. See that? All right. Now, that is the first one, the first line is thus then the only 180-degree vector that you can plot or course within a sphere. The next line, which would cross it, like an X in a sense, through the equator, through the center, like a chord, from the center point out to 2 points, would be a 90-degree, would it not? To the first line. Then 90 degrees to that will give you the XYZ axis. Have you got that? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, from this point, the only other vector, in a sense, is 45s. You've already gone now 180. You've done the 90s. Now, in between all of those, both along the equator and in between each of the equator points and the North and South Pole points, you have another 45-degree angle point. When you draw all of the 180, 90, and 45-degree angle three-vector points, you will find that including the center point, you have 27 points. You can plot this out later if you can't see it in your head now. You will find this to be true. 27 points represents the three vectors that are required for the full coverage of the third-dimensional reality that then describes the sphere that is, in a sense, the connection from your reality to a higher dimensional reality. Along with the understanding of the geometric forms, this has all been encoded in many of your ancient languages. This is why what you call your ancient Hebrew text has 27 letters. It describes these 27 points. Each point is a different tone and a different vector. And if you can learn to see each of these shapes of these letters and turn them around in your head and make them become all the other letters, you will have taken yourself through all three vectors, all 27 points, and that will be analogous to the kind of mental gymnastics that we're also talking about when you turn the polyhedrals around in your head as well. That's why each of these letters is chanted. Not just spoken, but chanted, because each chant is a tone that, at least originally, corresponded to the shift key that each letter represented. Now, understand this, as many of you may already do. All of those 27 letters are composed from the same shape. It is the spiral that is the active principle in creation. If you take a spiral, similar to the idea of what you would call a ram's horn, not just a flat spiral, but one that's extended up, like a ram's horn, a corkscrew spiral, going from a broad base to a point, in a sense, yes, along the Fibonacci sequence, along the golden proportion sequences, again, like the ram's horn spiral. If you take the shadow of that shape, and if you hold that shape in all of the 27 positions we have described about the sphere, you will see that the shadow of the shape will change into all 27 of the Hebrew letters.
That's what Stan Tennant's working on.
Yes. But this is why it's that way. It's connected interdimensionally to the three vectors of interdimensionality that you need to describe the full dimension you live in, so that having all those chords, all those vibrations in one, you can then translate to a higher dimension.
This was known to ancient peoples, ancient
Yes,
Hebrews?
it was known completely intuitively.
And how was it lost, or was it saved in any of the texts like the Kabbalah?
It is saved in many of the texts, such as the Kabbalah, and many of the ancient Hebrew texts, and many of the ancient Sanskrit texts, and many of the ancient Atlantean texts that you will find again. But the idea is, again, that intuitively it was known, and the idea is that you have forgotten because of the degree of segregation, separation, and limitation that you have gone through on your journey to understand third-dimensional reality. But in the whole, this is not a negative thing. You will now use all of this. You now have all this experience, as you say, under your belt. You understand third-dimensional reality very well. And now you can take all of the limitation and transform it into an unlimited application.
Okay.
All right.
Next question.
Yes.
What is folded space, and how can we, is it possible for us to fold it?
Yes, and again, you actually do that all the time. And folded space is really nothing more than another way of understanding that everything is actually here and now. The idea is really to understand, again, there is only one spot here. There is only one now, and that is this moment, one moment, now. And everything is, in a sense, folded up within that. Now, in the physics sense, folded space can have a slightly different meaning, but it's still really based on the same principle that things can interpenetrate interdimensionally so that more than one thing can occupy any given volume at any given time as long as it interpenetrates each other in an interdimensional way.
Could you give us like a brief description on how that relates into physics?
The idea would be similar to the concept of what you would call or have already referred to as your wormhole. In a sense, it represents that in one particular structure, there is automatically enfolded a volume of space that in normal three-dimensional linear space-time terminology would require a much bigger volume to access or to get to or to travel to. Whereas in the wormhole, it's all wound up, it's all folded up, it's all bent up in a relatively short amount of volume, a short amount of space.
How can we find, access, or use a wormhole in the sense of physics?
Again, it can be created through certain devices with enough concentration of electrogravitic energy in any one given point that will actually allow space to be bent and folded up if the gravitational amplification is strong enough. Although, of course, if you're not careful, it will wreak havoc on your physical reality plane because it will literally smash anything within reach.
On a side question, is this related in any way to the propulsion systems that the Greys use?
Some, yes. To some degree, yes. It is, to some degree, in some ships, a folded space type of effect that is achieved by their technology, yes.
Do they use gravity amplification?
Yes.
Okay. And
you are getting off the target.
I know. Okay. And is there an involvement with the Bose-Einstein condensate and how that relates to this?
There is to some degree, but it is tangential at this point, and we will not go in that direction right now. Let us continue.
Okay.
For the time is approaching really, for the preparation and the meditation, which must come up now quickly.
Okay.
We may not get through all of your questions.
What does the Tesseract allow us to experience versus the other forms of sacred geometry?
The Tesseract, in particular, will allow you a little bit clearer, shall we say, perception that is designed to match the orientation you are already used to in perceiving physical reality, because the cube is an apt description, an apt analogy geometrically of your third density reality. And thus the Tesseract, being a hypercube, will bring with it some degree of familiarity that some of the other shapes may not have for you at first. They may seem a little too foreign to you in terms of the way the information is processed within them, whereas a cube, having height, width, and depth, is very familiar to you in terms of the three axes of physical reality.
Okay. And will you give us a sound tone tones going up so we can keep raising our frequency?
Nope.
Okay.
We are now going to be giving very shorthand answers.
How do we get into resonance identification?
Love. Unconditional love. This is the idea of resonance identification. You must match the frequency, you must synchronize, you must harmonize. The easiest way to do that is to unconditionally love something. The idea then is that that's why we have expressed that when you immerse yourself in this, when you love it, in the same way you would fall in love with anything or anyone, then you will have resonance identification. You will breathe it, you will live it, you will know it. It will be second nature, it will be you. That's resonance identification. There are many methodologies that you can utilize. Trust your imagination in this, but the primary fundamental underlying principle in all of it is literally unconditional love and absolute acceptance of the highest energies and excitement and creativity within yourself, for yourself and for everything within infinite creation. That's really the fundamental principle. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes.
Last question. We had all thought about when you're going to go into this preparation and visualization and everything you're taking us into.
Yes.
Can we manifest something from the Tesseract?
I don't know. That's up to each and every one of you.
Do you think we can do it collectively with you and take us through and see if we can manifest it?
I know you can.
We can.
It is not up to me to decide if you will.
Okay, then we're all deciding that we will, right? No. Can't do it that way?
Expectation.
Oh, okay. No expectation.
We can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Here we go. The first stage of preparation.
Okay. Let's do it.
Repeat after me. I intend that I am the manifestation of the best for all concerned. All right? Again, remember the paradox. The secret to manifestation is not so much that you need a particular thing to happen, but that you are willing to allow whatever needs to happen, knowing, without having to think about it or order it, knowing that you have already determined that what it is that will be the thing that happens will be the best for all concerned and will be representative of your highest vibration of joy, because that's who you are. Do you understand that? All right. Preparation continues with, again, the allowance, the willingness, the understanding to know there is no reality. Repeat, there is no reality. But that's what reality is. All right. That's the paradox. Once again, all together, there is no reality. But that's what reality is. when you really start to wrap your minds about being comfortable in living in the unknown, when you really wrap your minds about being comfortable in living in paradox, that's when these tools will really start to work strongly for you. You must allow the unknown to be your friend. You must invite the unknown, because in the unknown, that's the only place you're going to find yourself. That's where you are. You are in the unknown. I am in the unknown. I am in the unknown. I am the unknown. I am the unknown. The unknown is me. The unknown is me. The unknown is in me. The unknown is in me. I am in the unknown. I am in the unknown. We are one. We are one. And the same. And the same. Here. Here. And now. And now. All right. Now, these are the things that you can do in your own time, in your own quiet space, in your own meditation, to prepare yourself, along with what we've already discussed about examining your beliefs, your definitions, allowing yourself to clarify what those definitions are, what the relationships are you have. And remember, one of the strongest ways to understand what your definition is to understand how you feel about anything, because your emotions are secondary responses and reactions to something you already believe to be true. Because everything is fundamentally neutral, nothing has built-in meaning. You do not feel anything about anything if you don't already believe something to be true about that thing. So remember, if you're confused about what your definition may be in your relationship to a certain situation or thing or desire or expectation or person or what have you, look at how you feel how you feel, own how you feel, and understand. All you have to do is ask yourself, what would I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do? What would I have to believe is true? What would I have to believe is true? In order to feel the way I do. In order to feel the way I do. That's all you have to ask yourself. And if you go into a quiet space, you'll begin to understand that regardless of what anyone else is doing, regardless of how anyone else is participating in any interaction, regardless of what anyone else's intention may be, what you experience is you. Your reality is your version, your reaction, your response, your energy, your consciousness to the situation based on your belief, your definition of the situation, regardless of whether you recognize someone else may be, in a sense, out of integrity, has nothing to do with what you get out of it and what you experience. One of the strongest things you have to do to really use these polyhedral gateways in the most efficient way, the most profound way, is to really let go of the idea that anything means anything specifically. Nothing means anything specifically until you supply the meaning. Until you supply the meaning. You will notice, by way of the analogy that we have already discussed in your motion picture Contact, when you see it or if you have seen it, that at the moment of transition, no one could really see what was going on except the one experiencing it. You will find that the main question is, did it actually even happen at all? And you will find that this all hinges around the concept of, what does the experience mean to you, regardless of what it means to anyone else? And that is your only determiner in this particular instance of reality for you. We are not telling you to let go of the consensus reality completely, but we are telling you again that there is a larger range of flexibility. And if you're not afraid, and here's the final preparatory idea, if you're not afraid to be you, if you're not afraid to be unique, if you're not afraid to be different, then you will begin the true journey into yourself that will allow you to unfold in new ways, express your personality in new ways that automatically, if they are aligned with your truth, with your joy, with your nature, will automatically blend, harmonize, and fit with everything that needs to happen in your life and everything that needs to unfold and give you more insight, more awareness, more understanding of how to continue to expand that experience, both energetically and in physical materialization to correspondingly reflect the energetic changes within you. So, there will be, within this meditation itself, more preparation. Because the preparation is to do the meditation as part of your immersion, along with all the other things that you're going to do to surround yourself with the idea of using these tools. Now again, you don't have to. If it doesn't excite you, use something else. You will always find that whatever it is that excites you the most will bring to you the things you need that will work best for you. So if this doesn't excite you, when all is said and done, don't worry about it. You'll find what you need somewhere else in the same way that you have always found whatever works best for you. You will still empirically arrive at the same level somehow, some way, someday, whether you use these techniques or not. But for those that are truly excited about this idea, you will find that this will work very well for you if you do the meditations, if you allow yourself to immerse yourself through your creativity and your physical expression, surround yourself, breathe it, and learn the language, then you will understand the language when it is spoken to you. So, become comfortable and prepare for your meditational journey. Have your eyes closed, have your eyes open. 'Tis up to you. Whatever you deem is best to bring about the clearest visualization for yourself, the clearest feelings for yourself, and it doesn't always have to be exactly the same kind of visualization as someone else, or the same kind of feeling or thoughts as someone else. Again, what works best for you, trust it. If it is quick, trust it. If it is long, trust it. If it is in color, trust it. If it's in black and white, trust it. If it's only a feeling, trust it. You'll get what you need. Now, in whatever way, shape, or form works best for you, relax, take a deep breath in, deep, 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 and let it out. And another deep breath in, deep, 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 and let it out. And a third time, breathe in, and hold it. Hold it. Hold it. Do not let it out. Don't let it out. Hold it in. Hold it in. I know you can do it. You can do it. Hold it in. Don't chortle. Don't laugh. Don't chuckle. Don't let it out. Don't snicker. Don't guffaw. Don't smile. Not one little escaping hiss of air do I want to hear from any one of you whatsoever. Even if someone were to come up and tickle you. For those still holding, let it out. And remember, if you decided to hold it, that's fine. But if you held it because you thought you were supposed to, you're not getting the point. So, one more time, take a deep breath in and let it out. Your own pace is your own pace. And that's all there is to it. Now then, in a comfortable place, in a comfortable space, within your imagination, in the center of your being, wherever you deem that may be, imagine empty space, a black void, or a white void, or a red void, or a green void. It doesn't matter. Let your imagination be your guide, but give yourself whatever is to you the ideal space in which to feel or hear or view the first gate. The first will be the zero sphere, which is just a ball, can be transparent, can be opaque, it does not matter. Keep breathing gently, regularly, comfortably, most importantly. Imagine the zero sphere. Whatever size, doesn't matter. But allow yourself the opportunity to recognize, first of all, as you would say, intellectually, that a sphere from any angle is a sphere. Ball is a ball is a ball is a ball. And from inside, in any direction, if you move inside, any direction looks much the same as any other direction. But you know it is the same ball. The same one ball. And as you are now in this ball, in this sphere, the zero sphere, imagine at whatever point you decide is the center, and whatever that may mean to you, imagine a small, tiny little seed begins to grow, and it grows into a tetrahedron. A three-sided pyramid, four sides with a base, of equilateral triangles. A little tiny crystal, growing to whatever size is comfortable for you. Spinning in whatever way is comfortable for you, or sitting stock still, doesn't matter. Pointing up, pointing down, doesn't matter. Pointing at you, pointing away, doesn't matter. This is your tetrahedron, yours alone. It will orient itself like a compass needle according to the vibrations, the currents, the eddies of the electromagnetic, gravitic, etheric field of your consciousness. So let it bobble and waver or sit stock still, pointing however it wants to, because it's going to show you the way of your vibration. It's going to orient you to the vibration of yourself. It's going to start the idea, begin the process, initiate the concept of you instinctively and intuitively knowing how to gravitate towards that which you recognize as the mirror reflection of yourself, no matter in what form it may come. And let yourself now, once you have formed a relationship with this tetrahedron, that is, once you have decided it is representative in the way that you prefer it to be, even if it keeps changing, that can be a decision. Allow yourself now to recognize that you are in the zero sphere and that the tetrahedron floats before you, and move into the center, through the face, any face, through the edge, through the point, however you want to enter, enter the tetrahedron. And understand that while you are in the tetrahedron is also in you. You are interpenetrated. And as you are now in the tetrahedron, You perceive all its qualities with all of your senses: smell, sight, sound, taste, touch, hearing. You begin to familiarize yourself with the tetrahedral structure. It begins to rub off on you. You begin to flow into it. It begins to flow into you. You become one. You fill every corner, every edge, every space, every point. You become the tetrahedron. And you hear the vibration of yourself. And you feel the temperature of yourself. And you know the hardness and the softness and the angles of yourself. And as you now collapse back into the center, you yourself become the next seed. And you grow inside the tetrahedron into a cube. A six-sided cube. And you feel the solidity of yourself and the stability of yourself and the certainty of yourself and the height and the width and the depth of yourself. And you know this is the world your consciousness has been focused in. This is third density, third dimensional reality, symbolically presented to you, by you, reflected as you. You are the cube. Use all your senses again to know yourself as the cube, within the tetrahedron, within the zero sphere. And simultaneously, also imagine you now begin to get a glimmer of an understanding that outside the zero sphere there is also a tetrahedron, and outside that tetrahedron there is also a cube. So you have a large cube, inside of which is a tetrahedron, inside of which is a zero sphere, inside of which is a tetrahedron, inside of which is a smaller cube. So that as you create inside, you create outside as well. As you go down, down, down the scale, you go up, up, up the scale. And now, allow yourself within the center of the cube to see the equilateral octahedron, the four-sided pyramids pointing up and down, stuck together at their square base, like a fluorite crystal, rotating or not. But this is the eightfold. This is the key of transmutation. This is the oxygen of life and breath and fire. This is the philosopher's stone. This is alchemy. This begins to open up doorways of chemistry and alchemy and transmutation and transformation and breath and fire and life and being and aliveness and light and brilliance and knowledge and awareness. And as this burns brightly within the cube, again you know there is a larger one outside the cube, beyond. Because as above, so below. As below, so above. As in, so out. As out, so in. And as you use all your senses to identify with and as the octahedron, you now allow yourself again to collapse down and simultaneously expand out, and allow yourself the opportunity of the 12-sided structures, the double 12-sided structures of the dodecahedrons, rhombic, and pentagonal. Do not worry if you do not have a clear vision at this time. Allow yourself to know that you will know them. You will become familiar, and even though now there may be a placeholder, an energy template, it is the same as the thing, because all is here and now and one. So know that you know them where you need to know them, and know that the you that does not will know them. Relax into the certainty that you are now dealing with the double gateway of 12, the 12 compounded by 12, the 12 times 12 and 144. That which is the threshold, that which are the guardians of the gate to the higher realm, the last of the inner circle of physical reality. And as you feel with all your senses these double forms, double 12, you allow yourself to pass beyond and through them and see forming and growing in between the icosahedron, the 20-sided figure of 20 equilateral triangles that glistens like a gem, brilliantly, multifacetedly, coolly, warmly, brightly, darkly, ruby red, emerald green, diamond white, sapphire blue, topaz yellow. Allow yourself all of the colors, amethystic, violet. Allow yourself all the shades, and know that you stand at the threshold of the domain of physical life. And as you focus on one of the 20 triangles, you allow yourself to witness as if the 20 triangles now have imploded into a small tetrahedron. But in each face, you see, like a finely cut diamond, the reflections of all 20 triangles going in, all the tetrahedrons contained within the tetrahedron. This is the transition to the etheric, regular, solid, the tetragrammaton, the first level of etheric, electromagnetic reality, of cold blue fire and brilliant electromagnetic and gravitic waves, waves like the ocean radiating from it, like a seed, like a stone dropped into a pond of radiating waves of thick energy, brilliantly, brilliantly, ripple upon ripple, shining, gleaming, glittering, intersecting, interacting, radiating in a spherical way from the tetrahedron, vibrating, singing, resonantly, both in and out, in and out, in and out, small and large, small and large. And now, from within the center of the tetragrammaton, there appears a square door. The door opens before you. You fall. You slide. You glide. You are pulled by the spectral radiance within. Magnetized by the Tesseract, the hypercube, ensconced within, of 42 faces, of 7 cubes. You stand within, before, around, above, on each side, and below, seeing reflections of yourself like so many glass house mirrors, yourself reflected over and 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 over, again and 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 again. And within every sense, Within every sound there is a tingling, tinkling echo of all other realities. No matter which one may be predominant, each one contains a chord, a harmonic, a resonance of all the others, like a crystal chandelier, tinkling, vibrantly, soothingly, sweetly, beautifully, crystal clear, beautiful tones. Wind chimes of the soul, wind chimes of the mind, wind chimes of the heart, wind chimes of the spirit, wind chimes of the consciousness, wind chimes of the infinite that you are. Each of you is a tesseract. You are the gateway. You are the enfolded space. You are the doorway. The box collapsed in on itself, containing all doors, all dimensions, all avenues, all streets, all conduits, all paths, all channels, all tunnels, all signals, all sights, all sounds, all lights. Tesseract. Transportation. Transmutation. Transfiguration. Transmigration. All in a box, a magic box that folds and unfolds and flaps down and up and side and in and out and back and forth, gate after gate, door after door, upon itself collapsing, opening, collapsing, turning, twisting, opening. An infinite array of mazes, labyrinths, corridors and conduits, of avenues and alleys and streets to explore, of lighted windows and inviting doors, all unlocked at the beckoning of your touch, all swinging wide on well-oiled hinges, all revealing their contents to you. Turn this box around and around, upside down, in and out, inside out, upside down, round and around, up and down, side to side, back and forth, in and out, inside out, outside in. And as it continues to round and around and inside out and outside in and up and down and side to side, folding, 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 in upon itself, over and over, while turning inside out and outside in simultaneously, it becomes a sphere, a hypersphere of infinite direction, infinite light, spheres within spheres within spheres within spheres, for all time and space, forever, infinitely, infinitely, infinitely in, and infinitely, infinitely, infinitely out, and infinitely, infinitely, infinitely here, and infinitely, infinitely, infinitely now. All one. All one. The language of light, the language of love, the language of your nature. For you are made in the image of the infinite. You are the glistening pearl that reflects in its surface all other pearls. To what your excitement attracts you, you merely need to shift your perspective. You need go nowhere, for there is nowhere to go. Be here, be now, be you. That is all you can do. Hear and feel this infinite pearl begin to vibrate, 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 sending off waves and waves and tones of beautiful harmonic chorale, choir-like resonances as the angels sing in perfect harmonic joy. In gratitude, in love, and in light. Allow yourself to now know that whatever it is that is representative of the magnetic and appropriate first manifestational concept that will be the new difference in your life, that is here and now, but that you will bring back. Allow it to manifest at its own pace, in its own way, at its own rate, in its own time, knowing that everything is here and now, and thus everything is perfect. Perfect. Perfect as it is. And when allowed to be perfect, perfect, perfect as it is, it will become whatever it can be. Magic is the way of things. Magic is the nature of things. Miracles are the order of things. Allow. Let go. Allow the image to vanish, but know that it is only vanished because it is now innately within you. And this innate infusion is what, if representative of your joy, will inspire you to act, to build, to grow, to change, to make, to create all the things you will surround yourself with, all the things you will ingest into your heart and spirit and mind in learning the language of the doors, the dimensional doors, learning to speak the language of light, the language of the present, the infinite. You will and are becoming one with each and every intent, with each and every ounce and spark of your highest joy. Until there is no difference, until you are the joy and know nothing else and accept nothing else as you. This then is your mirror, your magic mirror, and your gateway to the infinite. Take a deep breath and lock it in, for oxygen is the key. Take a deep breath and open to your reality, and know that as you reorient, you are not the same people that were here before, and this is not the same reality. You are now in a parallel world of infinite possibility, and it is only up to you to manifest that in the natural expression of yourself. Relax into who you are, and all will be effortless and automatic. Amen. At this timing, we will extend to each and every one of you a reminder. There is more that you heard than you heard. You will remember that you know. And when you remember that you know, you will know you always knew. And then you will be awake. So wake up and good day. Our unconditional love to each and all. How did it go?
As